All right. How are we doing? Do we have an audio check today? How are things looking? Just trying to see what we got going on today. See how everybody's doing this afternoon, this evening. Do we get a mic check? 1, 2. Welcome the Rumble audience. Welcome to Facebook. I see Major. All right, Major. How are you doing today? How's your day been? I love that picture that you sent. I appreciate you sending some stuff over. Oh, somebody's got their dog barking next door. Somebody's got their dog barking. Trying to get myself set up here so I can do a little stuff. Isaiah, what's going on? Sounds good. Okay. Well, guys, what I wanted to talk about today was we've been talking about the heat. And because there's so many people going through some heat stuff, I wanted to kind of cover some of that. So we'll just get into it. So when we're talking about body temperature, and this is some material that I came across recently. So it's good stuff. It's a basic understanding our bodies properly function within a narrow range of temperatures. A normal temperature is considered 36.5 to 37.5 Celsius or 97.7 to 99.5 Fahrenheit. The core temperature typically measured in the rectum, guys. Yes, that is your best place that you are going to get a temperature reading is in the rectum. It's the most reliable way of tracking trends in body temperature. When exposed to environments hotter than the current body temp, the core temperature can go up. Sensing this, our bodies begin to counteract a rise in temperature by sweating, panting, and altering blood flow. Even the healthiest individuals can develop an elevated core body temperature known as hypothermia. The effects of hypothermia can be minimized with good health, proper hydration, and nutrition. However, it does not affect every person the same way. So we want to be very mindful when we're talking about that stuff. Coach, what's going on? Quad is in the house. Welcome, guys. Yes, good day today. Highly productive. Fantastic. Love to hear it, guys. Please hit that like. Check out the super chat. All that stuff helps our chat goal. But we were talking about some of that heat. Right now, we're talking about hypothermia, and again, the effects can be minimized with good health, proper hydration, and nutrition. However, it does not affect every person the same way. Hypothermia can lead to the following heat-related conditions: heat cramps, heat exhaustion, heat stroke. Heat-related illnesses can affect anyone. However, certain populations are more susceptible. So we've got to be mindful of that. Outdoor laborers. So when you see those roofers, construction workers, things like that during summer, they're more likely to come across some of these things if they're not properly hydrating. And that's not just at work, that is round the clock hydration. Outdoor laborers and the elderly make up the largest percentage of patients most severely affected by heat related illnesses. Athletes and children are also victims due to their frequency of exposure. So it's a little bit different, but outdoor laborers are almost like athletes because they're outdoors and they're performing. So I can see why those are tied in. Children and the elderly have their own set of differences from like a grown adult. So it makes sense. May take several days to recover fully from the effects of heat exposure. Therefore, one must take extra precautions when activities lead to repeated and long exposure to heat. So, if you're doing this on a regular basis, you really got to be careful. Got to be careful out there. Come on in, guys. Come on in. The CDC, according to a study by the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, heat-related deaths are one of the deadliest weather-related health outcomes in the United States. And guys, keep in mind, in Europe and other parts of the world, they don't always have air conditioning like we do here. So that's still like, imagine the numbers in some of these other places. I've heard that it can be really catastrophic, especially with talk of people from the world that are visiting from other parts of the world with the World Cup being here. They're getting to experience things like air conditioning and talking about the differences. So individuals under 4 and over 65 years of age are at the greatest risks of being severely affected by heat related illnesses. People with other medical conditions or who are overweight may also have increased risk. So, again, being in good health definitely helps. Deaths attributable to natural heat exposure are considered preventable in the United States, yet continue to be a health concern. From 2004 to 2018, on average, over 10,000 deaths each year occurred from heat related illnesses. So that's a pretty high number for a long amount of time. More than half of hypothermia related deaths occurred with patients who had underlying cardiovascular conditions. So it it's still a lot, but it kind of explains it. Ultimately, everyone can be affected by heat, whether environmental or artificial heat. Yeah, for sure. Let's take a look back over here. Who do we got? Yes, I did post about the pickle juice, Coach Will. Yes, yeah, yep. I appreciate that, Coach Will. We gotta educate as well. So while we are in this heat, we definitely got to be mindful. People who work outside continuously are at the greatest risk. Layover time between shifts may not be enough to recover and replenish water and electrolytes fully. In these conditions, workers begin each day at a higher risk of developing a heat related illness. Athletes should take care and preparation before the season begins. So this is something you're planning. You're staying hydrated for sure. Apart from mid-season heat wave, many experience heat-related illnesses at the beginning of their sports seasons because they're not conditioned or adequately hydrated and nourished for that level of activity. We've seen this a couple times in the NFL. I can't think of the last time it happened, but there have been some players who died in those off-season workouts over the summer, and this is exactly that. So may have been cardiovascular because they may have just been exerted too much, but if they haven't been taking care of themselves over the summer and then just showing up expecting to work their way back into shape, that can definitely be a problem. With the use of alcohol and increased use of recreational drugs among all populations, more and more patients may be at risk. Many drugs may impair the body's ability to regulate temperature and may even inhibit perspiration. So it's stopping the sweating, which is crazy. People in Midwestern and Northeastern states may not be accustomed to high temperatures and elevated humidity levels for a prolonged period of time. Should the temperature where they live rise for a day or week, or they travel to a hotter place, they may experience the effects of heat more quickly. But we are seeing that. So some of our Midwestern people, some and the Northeast, we've got Nate's Live has been telling us about the heat wave. Betty M in the house. Betty M is in the house. We're just talking about some heat. So we want to be careful in all areas of the world, guys, all areas. But it gave us a specific region just now. But alcohol, guys, alcohol will dry you out. So will caffeinated drinks. So we really want to be mindful as to what we're putting in our bodies. There we go. Temperature regulation is known as thermoregulation, and it's the part of the body's maintenance of biological chemical balance called homeostasis. So we want to stay balanced. We want to stay balanced when we're coming into homeostasis. That's the balance of what we have. Our bodies regulate temperature by using a variety of available factors, including shivering, sweating, rapid breathing, using stored energy from fat and from outside environment, and location of blood flow to warm and cold and cool body parts. So shunting, it's like sometimes when your fingertips get really cold, like if you're real cold, blood is pulling back into your major organs to protect that, and it will lose a finger rather than lose something else. So definitely good stuff. Let's see, what else do we have? Our body temperature can be measured in several non-invasive ways. Among the most common are oral, rectal, which is in your backside, auxiliary, armpit, uh, the ear, temporal, forehead, and so they go on to say rectal and temporal. So forehead and your anus are the most accurate, two most accurate. So those are things to really be mindful of. But those are also the areas that if you were starting to feel hot, that you would probably want to cool off the quickest too. So maybe not directly into the rectum, but the groin area, the crotch area, the armpits, back of the neck, the forehead, start cooling those areas off as well. If you can get the temperature reading, that means it's probably the most susceptible to need to be cooled down as well. What else do we have? Thermoreceptors. Temperature sensation happens throughout the body. Sensors called thermoreceptors relay information to the body's thermostat, where the body regulation decisions are made. So, lots of areas to be very mindful of. I'm going to skip through some of this. I'm going to skip through a little bit of this. Do, 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 do. Okay, we can go over eliminating heat, the processes of eliminating heat. To compensate for increased heat production and or absorption, the body uses various processes to eliminate heat, including radiation, convection, evaporation, and conduction. Radiation is transmission of heat produced when the body within the body to the surrounding atmosphere. So it's coming out of us. Radiate this radiant heat loss is directly affected by the surface area exposed to the temperature gradient experienced. Greater exposed surface areas have an ability to cool more quickly, especially when temperatures are extreme. This is because skin is conductive, allowing heat to pass through. Convection occurs when heat loss takes place once air or water moves past the body and carries it away. So, kind of, I'm guessing like a breeze or something like that. This is effective because the body cannot create a buffer of warm air around itself for too long. Evaporation occurs when water is converted into vapor form. This process removes heat as liquid water is cooler and draws heat from the surface to leave water as water vapor or steam. Conduction occurs through direct contact. Typically, this occurs as water vapor cools, depositing liquid water onto the surface. This heat exchange is the opposite of evaporation. So we got some good stuff here. MOP watching both on Rumble and YouTube. If we don't support each other, who will? Absolutely. Fantastic. Malcolm, what's going on? Dimitri, what's going on? We are talking about about heat and how to beat that heat. Dave, what's going on? There we go. We're talking about heat today. How to beat the heat. Today is a discussion about the heat wave and how to handle it. Thank you, Major. So, heat related illnesses, guys, conditions and predisposing factors. When attempts at heat loss to the environment are insufficient, body temperature rises. This heat leads to heat related illnesses. Two main conditions contribute to an increase in body temperature, leading to heat related illnesses. Heat from the body and environment equals heat loss. Failures in the thermoregulation systems. Hypothermia persists until the body can regain control of its temperature regulation. Symptoms begin with heat cramps and or heat rash, exhaustion, and progress into heat stroke, where a loss of consciousness and life-threatening circumstances become more likely. In these situations, remove the affected individual from the source of the heat. So if you catch them, if somebody's out passed out in the field or the street, get them into the shade. Get them off of the hot sidewalk. Get them in someplace where it's going to have an effect immediately so they're not continuing to be under the duress of heat. Many cases can be treated sufficiently with oral hydration and passive cooling in a shaded area. So, again, get to the shade, start getting the cool liquids, and see if that can help them. If they're caught early enough, recognize that heat exhaustion is a progression that leads to heat stroke and other more severe consequences. Although many charts exist to differentiate between heat exhaustion and heat stroke, an untreated patient can begin to experience symptoms of both. So, we got to be careful with that. Certain factors can increase the likelihood of developing heat related illnesses. Climate. High temperatures reduce the body's ability to lose heat in the environment, and high relative humidity reduces the body's ability to lose heat through evaporation. It's that heavy, sticky air. So we're not able to just kind of, lose it, lose it through the skin. People acclimated to hotter environments are less likely to develop heat related illnesses than those from colder climates. The opposite is also true. So if you're used to the heat, you're probably not going to acclimate very well to the cold. Exercise and activity. A person can lose more than 1 liter of sweat per hour when exercising. This leads to a loss of valuable water and electrolytes like sodium, chloride, potassium, and magnesium. So this is why it's important to have like not just water on hand. So if you got to grab a Gatorade or something, by all means grab it. Excessive water loss is associated with hypovolemia, as water makes up a good quantity of the blood's volume. This water is lost first and subsequently pulls water from the surrounding cells to compensate. Additionally, use of available blood sugar for activity can lead to feelings of weakness and lethargy. So again, we're made of water. So the more we sweat it out and we're not replenishing it, it's going to affect our blood as well. So we got to be mindful of that. And that can affect the oxygenation of your blood and our mental status as well. Age. We talked about this earlier. Geriatric patients do not regulate well, and their baseline temperature is lower than young adults because their skin tends to not be as responsive as it was at a younger age. They typically give off more heat and feel cold throughout the day. When exposed to sudden changes in environmental temperature, they are much slower to respond and or maintain adequate compensation. So this is why when you see older people saying, "Hey, you know, we we're cold. Grandma's always cold. She's always got a shawl on. Why? Because she's always putting out heat and she's not able to like really kind of make that up within herself. Yeah, much needed talk. We definitely got to have it. I appreciate you guys hanging out here. Their decreased ability to compensate means they will experience common symptoms more continuously throughout heat exposure, giving valuable clues to caregivers. So keep an eye on those things for sure. Geriatric patients are also more likely to take medications that contribute to dehydration, like blood thinners, increasing increasing the risk of heat stress or making mobility to cooler environments more difficult. So again, medications and age; those are two things. Here's an important one. Newborns and infants are also at a high risk for heat-related illnesses because they do not regulate temperature well and cannot remove their clothing to stay cool or give feedback to do so. So you really got to be careful with kids. Pre-existing illnesses, conditions, heart disease, dehydration, obesity, fever, fatigue, and diabetes increase the risk of heat-related illnesses for people of any age, and the medications to treat these conditions may also contribute. So be mindful if you have a pre-existing condition or medical diagnoses and you are taking medications for that. I would look up those medications and just find out what that may mean when exposed to extreme heat. People with diabetes also have a higher chance of developing hypothermia because they develop um, autonomic neuropathy, a condition that changes the atomic auto, autonomic service nervous system. I'm butchering some of these words. Um, Additionally, peripheral circulation is also greatly affected in long-time diabetics. This may interfere with thermoregulatory input from temperature sensation to vasodilation to perspiration. So this is talking about extremities. Alcohol use, guys, the alcohol use adversely alters thermoregulation and causes a reduction in core body temperature as it dilates peripheral blood vessels, giving them a feeling of warmth while losing heat to the environment. So basically, alcohol is going to trick your body. It's going to have you feeling warm from the inside because what you drank, but it's also you're also not regulating your temperatures correctly as well. Cases of alcohol-related hypothermia, low hypothermia, low temperature, are common in places where it's cold because the false feeling of warmth leads people to not prepare adequately for long outdoor periods. So don't go drinking out in the cold, basically. Drugs and medications. Certain drugs may decrease sweating, decrease or increase peripheral circulation, decrease thirst, increase urinary output, or increased heat production, all of which impacts the body's ability to regulate temperature. I'll take a drink while we're here in between. Here we go. Oh, Quantum got a gift. Bill, what's going on? MOP dropping him again. Thank you so much. Pull up Ken for the win. All right. There we go. Pull up Ken. We were talking about beating this heat and how to recognize things and what to do about them. For instance, beta blockers and stimulants interfere with vasodilation and tend to reduce the heart rate. slowing response and changing environments. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs and antihistamines interfere with central thermoregulation and hydration. So if you guys are taking any of these things, be mindful. Stimulants increase core body temperature by constricting peripheral blood vessels as their mechanism for increasing blood pressure and cardiac output. This limits the heat that can be lost to the environment. Excessive stimulant use may lead to cyanosis. That's the bluish fingertips, bluish tint, sometimes in the lips too. In fingertips, toes, as well as decreased capillary refill. So, guys, your cap refill is when you squeeze the tip of your finger, do that, and you see it filling back in. That is your capillary refill. So, you want that to be relatively quick. If it's staying like white for a long time, there's a circulatory issue going on. um, Take a moment. So, yeah, we want to make sure that understanding like your drug classes and what they do to hinder the body's ability to regulate temperature. Got to be careful with that. Got to be careful with that. Hyperthermia. Up, hyper is up, hypo is down. Hyperthermia refers to a group of heat-related conditions that are characterized by abnormally high body temperatures that include heat rash, heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. So, got to be careful as heat regulating mechanisms become overwhelmed. The body will present with signs of these conditions. A brief overview: so heat rash is a product of sweat being trapped in the skin, unable to escape. It is common in hot and humid environments. So they were talking about that earlier. So when your skin isn't open and it's got that heat around it, that humidity, it's trapping it, so it's not able to escape the body very well. It is common in hot and humid environments and appears red and bumpy, exacerbated by wet and heavy clothing. It usually goes away on its own with proper hygiene and proper clothing with adequate ventilation. So, taking a shower and moisture wicking clothes, I'm sure, help as well. When sweat ducts become clogged, the efficiency of thermoregulation declines in the affected area. So that's where you're going to see the outbreaks, things like that. So be mindful, guys, especially you guys in the Midwest, East Coast, where you're experiencing that, and always the people in the South. When intense sweat results from high activity or heat exposure, one can be at risk of heat-related illness. Heat cramps are muscle spasms or cramping that result from lost water, salt, and other electrolytes. Heat cramps typically occur in larger muscles and are often the clearest sign and your best chance to replace fluids and electrolytes orally. So once you start feeling that cramp coming on, start getting those fluids in. It means you've lost more than you're putting in, and you've probably been overexerting yourself. A worsening of this condition leads directly to heat exhaustion and heat stroke. So that's your warning. Once you get to heat exhaustion and heat stroke, you're going to start experiencing more and more dangerous symptoms. Dave, you are more than welcome. Thank you for that, for dropping that in. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I watch for the situation all the time when coaching football. Fantastic, Bill. That is a huge place. And that's a perfect example of trapped heat. Anybody who's played football, you know how much heat you can feel under your shoulder pads. And you know how much is trapped in your helmet, and you're under that jersey and you're sweating profusely, whether it's in the Midwest, whether it's in the South, whether it's in the West Coast, you're sweating profusely and it's all trapped. So, absolutely. I would always tell some of my players, go take your pads off. Like when we go get water, take your pads off. You got about 5 minutes to do that. Take your pads off, let all that heat get off your body, and then we're going to throw them back on, but we're going to get back to it. Fantastic. Thank you for that, Bill. Regardless of the mechanisms causing hypothermia in patients, they're more likely to show similar signs in the early stages of heat exhaustion. These may include dizziness and fainting. I've seen that. Nausea and vomiting. Seen that. Vomiting is definitely dangerous because now you're expelling even more water out of your body. Vomiting and diarrhea will dehydrate you in ways that you don't really realize because you're too busy throwing up and having diarrhea. A weak or rapid pulse, cramping, excessive sweating, cool, pale, damp skin, heat stroke, which develops as later signs of hypothermia, may include no sweating. So when you get to the point that you're not sweating anymore, there should be some real concern. hot, dry skin, altered mental status. So if somebody doesn't know what their name is, what the date is, where they're at, or why they're in the trouble that they're in, then you really got some issues. You really got to get on the horn and call for some help. And possible loss of consciousness. Heat cramps. Let's see. Heat cramps are often brief and intermittent, but severe, and they occur primarily in the body's large muscles. I had a slight one in my calf yesterday doing the workout, so it happens. They can be prolonged. The patient can be expected to go down immediately and experience immediate pain. Heat cramps are usually found in the patient's arms, legs, abdomen, or back muscles. Heat cramps are often exacerbated by fatigue from heavy work, exercise, and inadequate rehydration measures. In addition to prolonged experience to high temperatures, heat cramps are the most commonly seen form of heat related illness. So that's not a bad thing. It's a warning sign. It is an absolute warning sign. MOP, you know what we're talking about. Let's see. Immediate patient care should be able to stretch the affected muscles, immediately hydrate, and begin cooling the patient. Yeah, guys. So the patient, the athlete, your coworker, whoever it is, you want to be able to, again, lightly stretch and start hydrating. But here's the kicker. In most conditions, water is not enough. Heat cramps commonly occur in patients who exercise and sweat profusely and subsequently consume water without adequate electrolytes, mainly salt. So sometimes that's where Coach Bill was talking about earlier. Coach Will was talking about a little bit of pickle juice, your Gatorades, things like that. You may not be a sugary drink person, but those are going to help you in these situations. Pedialyte is another good one. These patients may display normal or slightly elevated temperatures. It may not be too late to orally hydrate with electrolyte-rich, sugary sports drinks. Remember that large quantities of waters can deplete electrolyte stores, so you don't want to drown yourself out by just chugging a bunch of water. We've got to have minerals in there with it. A person could lose 1 to 3 liters of water per hour when sweating from extremely high exertion or temperatures. Each liter of water contains 30 to 50 milli equivalent per liter of sodium chloride, as well as magnesium, calcium, and potassium. The combination of water, sodium, and electrolyte loss causes muscles to cramp. So it's not just about water. That you got to have more than just water, because if you've ever sweat and you've tasted like the salt and things like that, it's your body putting out the minerals. In addition to a significant loss of sodium and electrolytes, these patients may also be low on sugar, another water retaining factor that also contributes to energy. So if you don't have something like orange slices or watermelon or something like that, get the Gatorade. It's gonna do more help than damage. Patients should rest for at least 12 hours after the onset of heat cramps in a cool place and should consume a sufficient amount of electrolyte rich sports drink. Further exertion increases the risk of progression from heat cramps to heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Although heat cramps can occur without um, other heat illness, a person with heat cramps should always be monitored for symptoms of heat exhaustion, especially if the cramps subside and the patient decides to return to activity too rapidly and without adequate rehydration. So, yeah, sometimes you got that coworker, you got that teammate, you got that person who like they're going to tough it out. I'm fine. I'm fine. You got to watch them. Got to watch them. We can't hold them down, but you got to watch them. Note the rapid cooling of muscles, such as during a cold shower, application of an ice pack can also lead to heat cramps. So we got to be mindful of that as well, which is a good thing to know. Patients with heat cramping commonly present with the following: painful muscle cramping and spasms, heavy sweating, hot skin, nausea and vomiting, normal pulse and blood pressure, general weakness, muscle fatigue, soreness, and when managing heat related cramps, um, always follow what the steps that kind of we go over and study more on it. Study more on it. Remember, remove the patient from the heat source. Somebody may pass out at work and you might be doing heating or cooling or construction. If they're passed out on the sidewalk, get them off the sidewalk, get them into the shade, get them someplace where it is going to help their circumstance. Remove as much of the patient's clothing as permitted. So Be mindful, but yes, for sure. And if, especially in shade, we don't necessarily want to put them in direct sunlight, but we also don't want that heat trapped on them as well. Replace sodium and water loss. And so you want to get those drinks, get those sugary sports drinks, the electrolytes, all that good stuff. If the person does not have an altered mental status and can protect their own airway, hydrate orally. So if they're not, if their tongue's not rolled back, things like that, give them the drink. Let them drink it if they can swallow and they are okay to do that. But again, plain water will not do. And if they start to feel nauseous, dizzy, weak, like just kind of cut it and let them kind of see if they can recover from there. Canyon, what's going on? I'm drinking water right now. Canyon, I work outside in the heat. A smart doctor told me many years ago to avoid sports drinks because of too much sugar, artificial ingredients. If you're going into heat exhaustion or heat stroke, drink it. If you can just ahead of time not drink it, by all means. But if you're in that serious of a condition, you're going to need to. I would say drink it. No sweating, but in high heat is real concern. Very serious. That's dehydration. Yes, Bill. Pickle juice. Yes, it does help. Plain water doesn't hydrate well because of lack of electrolytes. There you go. Drinking V8 juice with the water. There you go. Here we go. If you can certainly set yourself up ahead of time, by all means, do the best. But once somebody's in peril, um, get what's going to work, guys. And if a sugary sports drink is going to be what it does, then by all means, do it. By all means, do it. Let's see. Heat exhaustion. After heat cramps, heat exhaustion is the next risk. It results from a prolonged period of fluid loss without adequate fluid and electrolyte replenishment and is exacerbated by hot and or humid environment. So again, there's that heat, we're putting out the sweat and we're not replenishing it. During heat exhaustion, the body attempts to maintain a normal temperature, fails to, and as a result, suffers cardiovascular strain via decreased circulating blood volume and reduced cardiac output. These patients are often noticeably weak and tired. So it's starting to exhaustion. It's in the title, heat exhaustion. So noticeably weak and tired will do that. Loss of fluid can occur from sweating, diarrhea. We just talked about that. Other diuretics like caffeine and even heavy respiration. So if you're panting too much, your body's going to start working up that sweat as well. Prolonged sweating causes loss of water and salt and contributes to hypovolemia and electrolyte imbalances. Hmm. Heat exhaustion is serious and can be accompanied by a mild state of shock with pooling of blood and fluid in the lower skin and extremities. Look for swollen ankles. Good tip. Good tip. That edema. Blood flow to major organs is drastically reduced due to the body's secondary compensation mechanism, which is shuns blood away from many organs to maintain peripheral blood flow since cardiac output is limited. Heat exhaustion is commonly accompanied by heat cramps. So the cramps are going to be a very big telltale. Bananas have a lot of potassium. Yes, they do. Screedily D. Guys, that's also the watermelon. So the energy drink would be a bad choice in the heat, correct? Yes, major. Absolutely, guys. The caffeinated drinks, you don't want to be doing that, not out in the heat. Like it says, serves as that diuretic. So it's going to start taking this out of you. So you don't want those energy drinks, the monsters, Red Bulls, whatever they are. And guys, sometimes be careful. I came across a can and it didn't say anything. I think it was called Celsius and it presented as like a sparkling water. And so I looked at it and I was looking, and you have to go back to the back, read the fine print, and look at the caffeine count to figure out that it's an energy drink. So some of these companies, they're not even advertising that it is a caffeinated drink. So you got to be careful with that. Nisi, what's going on? Quad, when you stop sweating, you're in danger. I went through it. Yes, indeed. Nisi, how are you doing? Beans, what's going on? Let's read a little bit more of this. All right. Patients with heat exhaustion, people, coworkers, athletes typically have a core body temperature between 39.4 and 40 degrees Celsius, which is 102.9 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a danger zone, guys. Note that rectal measurements may be the best to assess core temperature. Now, that's more in a medical setting. But if you were coming across somebody, again, armpits, back of the neck, forehead, and the crotch are places that I would probably place a cooling agent to help bring the core body temperature down. Regardless of symptoms, patients with core body temperature above 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, are termed, are they are definitely in that danger zone. That's when you're getting to heat stroke. So we want to be careful at that. Once you get to that, you are looking at a risk of permanent tissue to many organs, including the brain. Think about that. You can get to that point that your heat cramps, heat exhaustion, heat stroke can have a permanent effect on your brain. So you got to be careful with that. And you got to get them out of there. You got to call for help at that point. No more fanning them off in the shade, trying to give them Gatorade or ice packs. You got to really get them out of there. If you have the ability to take a temperature and it's above 104, no different than if you just had a fever. Once you get to a certain point, you got to get to actual help. You got to get to help for sure. Let's see. Common symptoms associated with heat exhaustion are as follows. Let's see. Body temperature elevated above 37.5 degrees Celsius or 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Profuse sweating, shallow, rapid breaths, panting, clammy, moist skin, loss of skin like turgor. So, turgor is here, guys. If you can pitch there and you have a loss of turgor, if your skin's not snapping back, that can be a problem. Remember the cap refill. We want to make sure that that is filling back in a relatively quick amount of time. You got to be careful with that. Hypotension, dry mucous membranes, that can, if nosebleeds, can be certainly a sign of an arid temperature. Weakened rapid pulse, fatigue, headache, weakness, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, fainting, irritability, visual disturbances, muscle cramps, heat cramps, anxiety, decreased urine output. And this is a big one, guys, urine output. If your urine is dark, that dark color, that dark yellow, there's some dehydration for you. You got to make sure that you have that light yellowish tint to your urine. Extreme thirst, mental dullness, apathy, or confusion. So again, if somebody doesn't know their name, where they're at, how they got there, or even something as simple as the date. Generally ask four questions, so four simple questions that they're going to know the answer to. Those are definitely parts of it. Note that heat exhaustion rarely results in significant changes in mental status. If a patient, person, athlete has signs and symptoms of heat exhaustion, but also indications of altered mental status, always consider heat stroke. So it's one of those things. Consider the worst. Consider the worst. There we go. And go from there. Cena, what's going on? Here we go. We appreciate you being here. When I stop sweating, does that mean you're going to pass out? Well, it's going to be accomplished with accompanied with other things, Nisi. So yes, if you've gotten to a point like extreme exhaustion, you've stopped sweating. There's a good chance you haven't put enough in your body to be sweating out. So you should be very mindful. Doesn't necessarily mean the next step is to pass out, but it definitely means that something's going on if you're not sweating. So be careful. Is your skin hot? Is it dry at that point? Be careful, especially if you're still exerting your body. Like if you stop and you've cooled off and you kind of stop sweating, that's a little bit different. Quad says put ice cubes on the web of your hand to help cool your body. Fantastic, fantastic. Let's see. Yeah, and if always look at the scene. Are you safe? Are we safe to move them to a different area? And be careful while doing it. Don't put yourself in peril, especially if it's just you and a person. But you just gotta mind those things. So this is why being situationally aware ahead of time sometimes is really the important part. And that's why you see a lot of places they have things like shade set up or cool water drinks and stuff like that. So definitely be careful. Um, let's see. And again, strip them down. If you can strip them down, strip them down. I mean, be respectful, but get some of those hot clothes off of them. Especially in sports, uniforms can tend to be a little heavy and don't always breathe. Let's see. Replace electrolyte and water loss for sure, for sure. And if the person doesn't have an altered mental status, they know their name, all that stuff, and they're breathing okay, try to give them something to drink. Try to let them try to orally hydrate with room temperature. Don't go too cold right off the bat. But again, electrolytes. Once we start crashing like this, it's got to have electrolytes. The water isn't going to be enough. But still, give them the hydrate. If there is nothing like that around, give them the water. But again, stop if they feel nauseous, weak, dizzy. Let's see. Heat stroke. This is the big one, guys. Heat stroke. Heat stroke is the most severe of the heat related illnesses. It is a life threatening condition that is usually caused by a combination of excessive exposure to high temperatures and excessive increase in body temperature and the body's inability to cool itself. You've gone too far. Ever smell your radiator and then it starts steaming? It's like you're past the point of like just pulling over. Once it gets to that point, it's gone too far. And we've all, I've had radiator issues, and once you know, you know. As a result of severe disturbance in thermoregulation, the body's organs begin to fail. So we're talking about kidneys, renal failure, as they can no longer operate so far out of the proper temperature range. Yes, so you're cooking. You're literally cooking. And they just talked about brain and tissues having permanent damage. Organ failure begins to occur as a defense mechanism to prevent irreversible damage and ultimately organ death. Woo. All right. When the body's hypothalamic temperature regulation fails, the patient becomes increasingly hypothermic. Let's see. Further increases past 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit is considered hyperexic, and it's commonly caused by intracranial hemorrhage. So now we're talking about brain. This gets really bad, guys. It gets bad quick, and that's why the fever, being able to look at the fever as well, is going to be a big part of this. Um, so total thermal regulation failure is evidenced by absence of sweating. So there you go, Nisi. But you're also looking at a lot of other things. You'd have to have a really high temperature if that's what's coming with it. Dry and hot skin, a strong and rapid pulse, and often an altered mental status. Heat stroke may result from untreated heat exhaustion symptoms, and heat exhaustion may have resulted from untreated heat cramps. So if you're not paying attention to the cramps or taking care of it, then this is where it's going. It's just going to keep spinning and going down. Heat stroke will progress to cell death and damage to the brain, liver, and kidneys if untreated. Remember, the heat stroke can disproportionately affect the elderly and people taking medications for associated medical conditions. Heat stroke is a life threatening emergency. It is important to recognize trends and be aware that a seemingly healthy patient may become ill very quickly. Before 1950, mortality for cases of heat stroke was up to 75%. Today, 90% of patients survive with proper treatment. So I'm guessing it's much like in the 50s, it's much like the rest of the world is, where there wasn't a lot of centralized heating and cooling for somebody to be in a building where that was going to help with a regulated temperature, external temperature. The long-term outcome is directly related to the time it takes to cool and nourish the patient. If not recognized and treated emergently, the prognosis is poor. Repeated exposure for long periods of time, such as construction work, may not allow enough time for the body to recover fully. In these cases, the patient becomes increasingly at risk of developing a heat-related illness every day. So every day you go to work, that's kind of that's a scary thought, especially during the summer. When there are delays in treatment, rates increase, meaning patients have a lower chance of survival and recovery without permanent effects. These individuals are at risk of a brain damage, heart damage, and other organ failure or damage and permanent disability. Hod, what's going on? What's going on? Here we go. And Cena, nothing to write home about. No, no, nothing like that. Um, but I do plan on going in and eating. Let's see. The higher the temperature, the more quickly these potentially fatal conditions can set in. In extreme conditions, a comatose state may persist even after the body has cooled to normal temperatures. In this case, you may also find the patient has elevated liver function test. Ooh, so acute liver failure and in need of dialysis. So heat can really mess you up. As with heat exhaustion, ask about medical history. So it's going to be hard to know something like that. But if you know the person and if you know anything about their medical history, that would help. If you're on the work site, if you're on a sports team, generally they should know because there's usually a physical or something that a supervisor, a coach, somebody should know something about. Common symptoms associated with heat stroke are as follows. Note that people may exhibit some or a mix of these symptoms: high core body temperature, 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, severe headache, nausea or vomiting. And again, the vomiting, diarrhea, things like that are worse because they start to expel more fluids than we need to already be losing. Hot, dry, red skin. So um, if you're not sweating anymore and it's just hot, like there we go, that body is not putting out any more fluids. Rapid heartbeat, and it may slow as heat stroke progresses. Altered mental status and confusion. So if somebody's not familiar with where they're at or they're dizzy, things like that, just keep them on the ground, try to cool them off, and go from there. You can also check their pulses, see if their pulse is normal, if it's a normal beating pulse, or is it kind of erratic. We want to make sure that we're checking that. Hypotension with low or absent diastolic readings. So that's more of like a medical thing. Altered mental status or unconsciousness. There we go. Agitation, irritability, confusion, or incoordination. There we go. Are they wobbly? Or do you have to help them? Things like that. That's where we really want to be careful. Deep respirations that become shallow. That's a tough one. Seizure. Heat stroke should also be considered in any patient with an elevated temperature, especially if they have lost consciousness during exertion, because that temperature can still keep going up. So even if we're just talking about like heat exhaustion, that temperature doesn't mean that it's coming back down. It can keep going up. Got to be careful. Oh, let's see. You're also going to be looking at severe hyperthermia, core temperature greater than 105.8 degrees Fahrenheit or 41 degrees Celsius. Central nervous system disturbances, that might be seizures. Cessation of sweating. So if you are just going dry, that's a problem. And then there's two forms of heat stroke: classic and exertional. Classic is defined as an increased core body temperature due to increased heat gain from the environment and deficient thermoregulatory function. So that's probably your outside, the temperature, that humidity trapping the heat, not allowing the body to kind of properly cool itself. Exertional is defined as increased core body temperature due to overwhelming heat stress coupled with deficiency thermoregulatory function. Exertional heat related illness can be life threatening situation, and awareness is the first step in making a diagnosis. So we're talking about: are you on a work site? Are you exerting the body? Classic risk factors are chronic illnesses, especially cardiac and respiratory illnesses. So if you have something like respiratory or cardiac illness in your history, be careful in heat, especially if you're trying to exercise. Increased risk with age, sedentary lifestyle. If you just hop up off the couch and you decide you're going to run for 5 miles in that summer heat, be careful. That can be extremely dangerous because you haven't acclimated. Even for somebody who is relatively good at exercising, if they haven't acclimated to heat or cold, that can have an effect on you. So you got to be very careful. And both prescription and non-prescription drug use, excessive exertion. So lots of things to look for: excessive ambient temperature, prolonged exposure. How long have you been out in that sun, especially direct sunlight? So shade is okay, but in humid temperatures, you can't really escape that. It's going to be hot and humid in the shade still. So you got to be careful. Repeated exposure, poor acclimatization. So again, are you used to this or did you just hop up to do it? And this commonly affects the exertion. Commonly affects healthy males ages 15 to 45. Probably the most likely group to go out and be exercising in heat, which is probably why that affects. Extremes of age, the young and old. We talked about under 4 and I believe over 65. Medications, and again, your history. Illicit substances. Did you go to that rave, that outdoor 3-day concert, that Woodstock '99, and you took something that somebody just had in their van? Well, that may do it too. Overweight, you're asking that body to start really working hard and sweating profusely. That heart's going to be pumping even harder. So you got to be careful. Poor hydration status. Are you drinking enough water, and does it have the minerals and things to replace in there? Hot, dry, red skin. Sweating is absent. So again, to Nisi Poo's question earlier, yes, that's sweating. If it's absent, you may be having some issues. Renal failure in less than 5% of cases, but again, that's your kidneys. Moist, pale skin, sweating is often present. So just a lot of things to really be mindful of, guys. Be mindful. And again, determine, is it safe, and where can you move this person to? Where can you move a person to help protect them from direct sunlight, or getting them off of like hot concrete, hot pavement, things like that? Always make sure you're checking. You can check a pulse. You can look at their breathing. You can see, like, is their tongue rolled back, or is it swelled up, or anything else like that. So lots of things that we can do to help somebody. Removing the clothing is definitely a good one. Initiate the rapid cooling for sure. And you can fan the patient, try to get their temperature down. Get that temperature down. So then there's hypothermia versus fever. So they both present the same. They both look similar at the onset. So you got to be careful with that. You got to be careful with that. Now, too much water. Hyponatremia. Too much water, guys. You got to be careful with that. Here we go. Nisi says, did you say put a teaspoon of salt in water for hydration? I remember you saying something about honey. So before some of my workouts, I'll do a tablespoon of honey, and I'll put some salt on it. So I get a little energy boost, and then I'm also getting a little bit of the salt to help um, hold in that hydration. So you can have like a little bit of salt in your water as well, and that's where pickle juice comes in, stuff like that. It sneaks up on you. It absolutely does. And once you start getting to Major's point, once you start getting to a point where you are kind of altered in your mental status, you don't have the ability to think clearly, like, oh, I need to get out of the heat. I need to go grab something, because you're already spinning. You're already spinning. So you gotta be careful. It will definitely sneak up on you. Absolutely. Let's see, what else do we got? So, hyponatremia is a common condition amongst unprepared athletes and laborers. It occurs when a person ingests too much water in an attempt to replace fluids lost in profuse sweating. So, most of the time, you may not always see it, but I got my water. And a lot of times, my water is going to have something in it. So I've already put something in it, maybe a pinch of salt, maybe I've got some Gatorade that I've poured in there as well. But carry two if you need to. As a matter of fact, I always say carry three things. I don't have it right here, but I will have like a gallon of water that I've just left in the refrigerator. It can be tap water, because that's what I'm going to use to pour over myself, cool myself down when I'm heating up, if I'm out and about. Then you have your water, your drinking water, and have that ready. And then you have your sports drink, or whatever it is that it's going to help with the mineral replacement. So just too much water, guys, that's not always what's going to do it. Although they may have been thirsty and or dehydrated, water and electrolytes lost during perspiration need to be replaced. Sodium contributes greatly to water retention, prolonging water availability and the likelihood of absorption to cells. Although some electrolytes can be replenished by diet under extreme conditions, the addition of an electrolyte rich, sugary beverage is necessary for maintenance and recovery. Because they did talk about sugars, guys. They talked about sugars as well, also being part of something that can help retain hydration. So it's not always a bad thing if that's what they've got going on. Now, are there other options? Certainly, but this is absolutely a solution. Caffeine, a diuretic, can intensify fluid and electrolyte loss. Red Bull, what I say, Celsius, Monster. There's so many different energy drinks now, and you really got to be mindful on those labels because, like I said, that Celsius, it looked like a regular old drink. It looked like a sparkling water, but when we looked on the back, it had extra in that caffeine. Normal blood sodium levels. Yeah, so we got to watch that, but most people aren't going to know that, so we just got to know that we need sodium in replenishment. Uh, Hyponatremia is becoming increasingly common with people on very aggressive diets, such as strict vegan preferences or juice cleanses. Something to be mindful of. May also be hard to discover and only reveals itself by lack of other possible contributions to the person's state. So we got to just be mindful. This is where knowing yourself, self inventory, mindfulness, wellness, all that stuff is going to play a good part. Patients with low sodium levels or people with low sodium levels will present with more severe and noticeable symptoms such as confusion, being lethargic, and extreme fatigue. Sodium levels can result, low sodium levels can result in seizure, coma, or even death. So again, get that sodium. And I know, like we always hear sodium, it gets a bad name because we associate it with hypertension, high blood pressure, stuff like that. But it still serves a purpose. It does serve a purpose. So what hypertension does, that's excessive amounts. Excessive amounts. Most common symptoms of hyponatremia are fatigue, convulsions, headache, muscle weakness or spasms, abdominal cramps, nausea and vomiting, restlessness, confusion, rapid thready pulse, cyanosis, which is bluish color of the skin, decreased consciousness, seizures. So things to watch for, guys, and that means it's getting bad quick. When managing, be mindful. Be mindful. Study up on some of this stuff. What we're doing is just having a discussion about it. But all things to look up. Just Google. This was an easy Google to look up heat exhaustion and what to recognize and how to treat it. Things like that. Always make sure the person is like still breathing as well. We got to. That's very big. And again, if a person can have a clear mental status. They know where they're at, they know their name, they know the date, and they know what happened. Then try to give them something to drink. They're probably safe to drink, um, and on their own. So try to give them that. The oral hydration is going to matter. But again, if you can do outside of just water, by all means do it. And a lot of times people get caught with just water because they think, well, I just need water, but we need a little bit more than that. Need a little bit more than that, guys. Let's go back to the elderly. Let me see what we got, guys. We are on um, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. Is there a way to be extremely muscular while being vegan? Certainly. There's guys that have played in the NFL that were vegan. I don't know how well that served them, but it's certainly doable. I think you would just have to really go hard. I think you would really just have to go hard. So good question and good to see you. Let's talk about the elderly, guys, because we all got some elderly folks in our lives and special considerations. Older adults are much more prone to heat related illnesses than any other group. Nearly 50% of all heat related deaths occur to people over the age of 65. That's unfortunate. As you age, your skin, the largest organ on your body and large contributor to heat and water loss, loses its ability to respond as quickly to changing environments. As a result, the thermoregulation system's ability to function correctly is reduced. So they're just not responding as quick in temperature changes. Medical conditions commonly associated with those over 65, such as cardiovascular, respiratory, and diabetic issues, further affect the system's ability to respond appropriately to excessive heat conditions. Certain medications common for older adults, such as beta blockers, decrease systemic response time and increase the risk for heat related illnesses. Further, older adults have a decreased thirst perception, along with a reduction in the mobility needed for proper hydration and nutrition. Therefore, they tend to decrease their oral intake, compounded by a sedentary lifestyle. They may lose acclimation to the environment. So, very mindful. If they're just sitting and they've gotten less mobile and less independent, we got to make sure that we're either moving them or we're getting the fluids to them. And that can be a tough thing for once like things like bladder function and all that. You don't want to sit and drink water and then have to like get up and go to the restroom. So it can be frustrating, I'm sure. Finally, older adults have a markedly lower sweat gland density than younger adults, and lost muscle tone can also include a decreased ability to produce sweat from those glands. Elderly patients or people should also be monitored in new environments when physical strain or large temperature change exists. So just keep an eye on grandma, grandpa, keep an eye on yourself. If the temperature has changed or the exertion level has changed, just keep an eye. Watch for notably something like flushing of the face. Geriatric people may present with heat edema, swelling before common signs of heat-related illnesses present. Edema may be found in the extremities. So edema is swelling, hands, feet, usually at at the ends of something. Um, so you got to be careful for that. Pulmonary edema is definitely a dangerous one, and that's a hard one to see because you're talking about like heart issues. So, with decreased mobility, the elderly, be mindful of their environment, whether they're in a new or changing environment. Careful planning may be needed so that their environment is safe. Indeed. Is the person's new home environment adequate? Are they able to respond to changing factors like a heat wave by opening a window or turning on the air conditioner? So, again, if you're not mobile enough to open a window or do something like turn on the air, you got to be careful with that. So, giving them those tools to be able to do it. The good thing now with like cell phones is they sometimes have something that can turn on your thermostat for you. Do they have appropriate clothing? I'm a big proponent of that one. Light colored clothing and light fabric. Colored and light fabric. A lot of times people are doing the opposite. They're wearing their black winter wear clothing that is trapping heat to keep them warm during the winter, but they're still wearing it during summer because, well, it's your workout stuff. So you got to be careful with that. And finally, do they have access to their medications and proper nutrition? Got to be careful with that. Got to be careful with that. And why are some reasons that this affects the senior population? Well, if they're not working, then a lot of people, once they retire, are on a fixed budget. If you're on a fixed budget, something like a heat wave might spike your electric bill. And so sometimes people will sacrifice that and be in a hot house rather than feel like I can't pay that bill, so I can't save myself from the heat. So that's definitely one of those things to be careful because a fixed budget will change the way people will look at their expenditures. So let's see. Yeah, you can also bring fans into the homes as well. So that's always something to be mindful of. Scree says, "Yeah, me. I'm bumping back and forth from the screen, so I didn't see what part that was at." Let's talk about pediatric patients and their special considerations. Like older adults, children are prone to heat illnesses. One common cause of heat stroke in children is being left in a closed car on a warm day. I don't know how that happens. I honestly don't know how that happens. I'm not trying to judge anybody, but I would my ice cream, my all my groceries would go bad first because I always took my kids out of the car first. I took my kids out of the car first. Then you can go back for the groceries and stuff like that. But I'm not that it's a tragedy no matter how it happens. Let's see. These are increasing instances of children and dogs being left in cars while caregivers run quick errands. No, no, no. Temperatures increase rapidly in sunny, closed environments, and in many states, it is legal to break into hot vehicles to rescue children and even dogs. So bust that window out. Pediatric patients compensate much more greatly than older adults do. As a result, they may not exhibit as many symptoms of heat cramps and exhaustion leading up to heat stroke. And they're not going to be able to communicate that either. A child with heat stroke will display the following symptoms: altered mental status. And again, with small children who can't really, you might just think your kid is just being funny. And so that's a hard one. Limp muscle tone. So watch those physical signs. Show slow, shallow breathing, red, flushed skin. Always look at the face. Look at that for that. And it says it will progress later into pale skin. Sporadic heat rash. Treating children with heat stroke is similar to treating adults. So you got to be careful. Watch for nausea, vomiting, shivering, rebounding, hyperthermia, and hypothermia. So up and down in temperature. The cooling process for a pediatric person needs to be monitored so the child doesn't become too cold. Since they're smaller, cooling occurs more rapidly and should be done with careful monitoring. So we can't always just stuff those things in them. We got to be careful. May have to fan them a little bit more, maybe place the packs in something like wrap it in a shirt or a towel to allow that there's not as much direct change in their temperature. Uh, Rebound hypothermia can result in seizures, febrile seizures, and permanent neurological damage. So watch for signs of shivering on the cold child and cover the child with a dry sheet if the child begins to shiver at any point. Special needs patients may not be able to effectively communicate. So there you go, pediatric and special needs. We're talking about limited vocabularies or understandings. So you got to really be able to watch that. Additionally, their lack of autonomy can be compromised when not giving close attention. So if you're a sitter, if you're a caretaker, things like that, a coach as well, if you're working in a senior center, all of those things. Their decreased body size and compounding conditions may respond to treatments differently. So more frequent assessment may be necessary. Yeah, you got to keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on that. So stay hydrated is basically what we're talking about. Don't use thirst as an appropriate indicator of your body's need for water and electrolytes. Stay hydrated. Don't wait till you're thirsty, because at that point it's after the fact. You're already past that point. Here we go. Let's see. You can deplete as much as 30% of your body's water before you even begin to feel thirsty. Stick to water or electrolyte rich sports drinks like Gatorade, Powerade, or Propel, but avoid energy drinks like Red Bull, Monster, along with caffeinated beverages, as they will only serve to dehydrate you. Remember that it is your duty to ensure that you are prepared. Be prepared, guys. Be prepared whether you are going out just for a walk, a jog, whether you're going to work, whether you're on a sports team. Be prepared. You should stay hydrated long before you are at that point of performance. Ensure you are properly nourished and well rested. Yes, that as well. And don't forget cooling equipment. So, cooling equipment, it can be a fan, can be an air conditioner, it can be hopping into a car, turning it on, using the AC. It could be a lot of things. So, if you have like special tools or something that, it's like it plugs in, it can cool you off by all means. But tools also, just ice bags, and putting them in the proper places. And look at yourself. You can monitor sometimes your temperature, or have somebody else monitor it. Hey, do I feel hot? Is it clammy? Is my face red? Am I starting to get like heat rashed? Or did I stop sweating? So monitor your physical presence when it comes to that. And if you think that that's happening, say something. There is no toughing it out. And like I say, just like with the workouts, train smart, not brave. So whether it's training, working, whatever it is, it's not weak to say something. You got to say it before you get altered. Before you get altered, and always notify somebody. You got to, yeah. If you got a teammate, whatever it is, say something. There's a buddy system in that as well. So not only are you looking at yourself, but look at the people around you. Look at your coworkers. Look at your teammates. Look at other people on the hiking trail. You may not even know them, but when you're passing by and you're saying your hellos, if they are like really looking bad, you might, hey, are you okay? Because they might be just walking altered. They might be walking confused. They might be way off of the path where they're supposed to be. So you got to be mindful of some of these things. Got to be mindful. It's an important topic, and it's something to really talk about. So I don't have much more. Do you guys have any thoughts on any of this? Anybody got some thoughts where any of this is concerned? And we have Rumble here. We had Facebook as well. Oh, my own perspective over on Rumble. I appreciate that. Yes, absolutely. My own perspective over on Rumble. Guys, you can find us over on Rumble. And here's why I suggest it. In case something ever happens with YouTube, I'm not saying we're going to do anything crazy to the channel and get ourselves taken down. But if they just happen to have a crash or something happens, you can find us on Rumble. I'm not saying you have to go over there all the time, but you can still find us on Rumble. And so there will be lives that will be on Rumble, on YouTube, and on Facebook. So just a heads up. Absolutely, just a heads up, guys. Here we go. Is constipation part of it? Constipation can certainly have an effect on your hydration. Yeah, it might mean that you're not hydrated enough. Certainly, it can certainly be that part. So when you're before you even eat, you should want to drink some water. You should want to drink water or have some fluids. It's going to help your digestive process. It's going to help break down and pass those things from the large to the small to this to the through the anus. So yeah, you definitely want to be mindful of your hydration on a regular basis. Absolutely. Fans and a spray bottle of water is a cheap way to stay cool if AC is too expensive. Yeah, for sure. That's a great one. That is a great one. And I think a lot of times we've been there where you have to figure out. I've seen some ones where people use like dry ice in a fan and like a hose and a bucket, and they create like their own air conditioning system. So plenty of ways, guys, to be mindful and really take care. Because again, guys, in this economy, it's not just the elderly, but they're going to be most notably part of the discussion. Indeed. Proper hydration and Chipotle can help constipation. There we go. Dehydration causes constipation because your colon absorbs extra water from your food waste to maintain bodily function, leaving you with hard, dry stools that are difficult to pass. And you don't want to get to that point because then you're talking about hemorrhoids as well because you're pushing too hard, forcing blood to the sphincter. So, got to be careful, guys. Got to be careful. Yes. Yeah, your body is absorbing moisture so it can prepare that stool to pass through. So, if you are taking hard poops, I'm just going to say, if you're taking hard poops, you need to drink more water. Plain and simple. And get some fiber rich foods. Get some things that are going to help your body pass that. A lot of times we're not eating enough fibers. So be mindful of that. But we got some good topics in, guys. A good topic. It was necessary. We'd been talking about the last couple of days. I got a heat cramp yesterday's workout, a little bit in my calf, and I could see it. It was moving. It was doing that number. So what I do, we were already done with the workout. I stretched it out and got the hydration. Dred, you are very welcome. We appreciate you as well. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Guys, if you didn't hit the likes do help. So we appreciate that. Always check out the super chat. Super chats help. The chat goals, it helps as well. So it all helps. It all helps bring some of these other things. And if you looked in the chat goal, the goal was the reward for the goal or how we'd celebrate. If there's more videos like this that can come out, we can do more stuff like this. So um, it really wasn't a no sweat live chat. It was more like a discussion. But let's keep these things going. Let's keep these things going. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think we got what we came for. This was a good day to have a rest, especially after the workout that we did yesterday. We had a great workout this morning. So we can get up out of here and you guys can enjoy your evenings. Go get that shower, go get that hydration, nutrition. No exercise today, so get some rest. Go get some rest. And I'm going to leave it at that. But I hope this finds everybody in your place, pursuit, or beginnings of total health, mind, body, and soul. And guys, like we like to say, HWPO, that means hard work pays off. And this is the, it's not just me, it's not he, it's not she, it is we. Yes, cutting grass, there you go. Because you put the U in unity, and we all put that unity in the worldwide community. And this is the Impact Athletics Association. Guys, have a fantastic night. I'm going to cut it short on that one. I won't give you the song tonight because I'm a little parched right now. So I got to make sure that I got to get what I get in. So we will see you guys 4:30 Mountain Standard Time in the morning. Please set your alarms. Be there. Be ready. Hydrated, rested, nutrition, all that good stuff, and we will get the exercise in. So much love to you all. We'll see you guys very soon. This is the Impact Athletics Association. Absolutely another quality broadcast. Guys, please give it up for Scree and Major. Give it up for your moderators. They do a fantastic job day in, day out. And I think Nisi Poo was here earlier as well. Get the rest, guys. Much love to all. And yes, we will see you guys very soon. There was a little bit, just a little bit.